He said it's actually fairly common.
Oh, it is? Oh, that's right. Yeah.
That's right.
You can't.
No, it actually makes sense.
Yep.
So that's a bummer for them.
Good evening. It is 5:30, so we're going to call the regular meeting of the City Council to order. I remind you to turn your cell phones to silent or vibrate, and then let's all please stand and do the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Amanda, would you please take the roll?
Councilmember Dalby.
Here.
Councilmember Myers.
Here.
Councilmember Rowe.
Here.
Councilmember Stevens.
Here.
Councilmember Strebe.
Here.
Mayor Lazio.
Here.
Items on the consent agenda. Minutes from regular meeting number 26 on August 1st and special meeting number 27 on August 4th, 2017 is presented. Appointments to boards and commissions. Pam Ward, Waterworks Board of Trustees, term to expire July 22nd, 2022. Cindy Woodbury, Cemetery Board of Trustees, term to expire July 1st, 2024. And Mike Sammons, Atomo Housing Authority, term to expire November 22nd, 2018. Resolution number 177, 2017, approving the contract, bond, and certificate of insurance for the beach renovations Phase 2 project 2017, Contract A. Resolution number 178, 2017, approving the contract, bond, and certificate of insurance for the beach renovations Phase 2 project 2017, Contract B. Resolution number 179, 2017, approving the contract, bond, and certificate of insurance for the beach renovations Phase 2 project 2017, Contract C. Resolution number 180, 2017, approving the contract, bond, and certificate of insurance for the beach renovations Phase 2 project 2017, Contract D. Beer and/or liquor applications for Bridgeview Center, 102 Church Street with outdoor service area. Warehouse Barbecue Company, 2827 North Court with outdoor service area. Habisha Grocery Store, and there is a typo on the agenda. It is to be 428 East Main. Hy-Vee C Store number 2, 2457 North Court. Aldi number 73, 940 Quincy Avenue. Market on Main Extended Outdoor Service Area, August 17th, September 7th, September 23rd. And Hy-Vee Dual Sanction Rodeo, 2425 Emma Street, Temporary Outdoor Service Area, September 16th. All applications pending final inspections.
Is there a motion for the consent agenda?
I would move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of the appointment of Pam Ward to be voted on separately.
Second. Okay. Motion's made and seconded. Ready to vote? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby.
Yes.
Councilmember Myers.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens.
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe.
Yes.
Thank you, Gene. Okay, item 2 is the appointment of Pam Ward to the Waterworks Board. Somebody want to bring that up?
I would make that motion that we make that appointment.
Is there a second? Hearing none, then it'll die for a lack of a second.
You know, excuse me, point of order, Mayor. Maybe I misunderstood, but I thought it would be brought back up for discussion and that it would require a vote and a second, and then that discussion could occur. Clerk, am I incorrect there?
A motion can be made and a second to lay it on the table for discussion.
Okay, so my motion should have been to lay it on the table?
A motion is to lay on the table, yes, but it needs a second.
I'll second that.
Okay, so the motion is to lay on the table so we can have some discussion. Floor is open.
Mayor, I would ask, I know Waterworks Board member Chuck Manson's in the audience, and he would speak to this issue if we would allow it.
Come on up and identify yourself, please.
Good evening. My name is Chuck Manson. I'm a board member on the Waterworks Board. I've known Pam Ward for, do I really need it? Okay. I've known her for a couple decades. I've worked with her on other organizations, with my church, and other situations. I have all the confidence in the world in Pam Ward. I come from a world where you're innocent until proven guilty. We've heard a lot of accusations, but I trust her. I believe in her. I believe she'll make a good board member. We're sitting in a situation with all the boards in town that you want gender equity. You want balance in the boards. I think she's a good person. I think she's a good candidate. Considering the function of what's the responsibilities of a board member, you're proving things that have already happened. You bring to the table your insights of somebody who's worked in government, worked in business. That's a real plus if you're trying to keep a balanced board going, representing our situation. I think she's very smart. I think she'd bring a lot to the table. She didn't come to us. We recruited her because we thought she'd be a good candidate. A lot of things, it's been 6-7 years since all the other stuff that's popped up the other day, and I don't believe it's even germane to what we're dealing with, what the situation we're talking about here. I think there's been a lot of hate pushed out in the last day or two, unnecessarily, unfairly, and I think she deserves more than that. She deserves a better shot than that. She's given a lot to the city in the past, and I think there's by the same token, she enjoys her life as grandma, taking her grandchildren to this, that, and the other. And it was, like I said, it was us that recruited her because we think she'd do a really good job. Any questions?
Okay.
Because we struggle. Like I said at one point, we struggle to find ladies who want to even do. We've got one person, and we lost our chairperson lady under unusual circumstances recently. That's what kind of brought on the need to bring Pam on. So it's hard. And like I said, we think she'll do a real good job. Thank you very much. Appreciate the time.
Thank you, Chuck.
Please give her a serious consideration. Okay. Thank you very much.
In the spirit of openness and transparency, is there anyone else that wants to address the council on this issue? Okay, council, are there any other questions? Bob?
Yeah, yes, and I think Chuck brought up the point that we should be voting on. And early, Mayor, when you brought the potential appointment that she had volunteered and individually, as you polled, or as you ask, were there questions? There didn't seem to be any questions at the time as to whether she, as a volunteer of her time, in fact, that she would be a good, hardworking member of that board. And to me, that should be the issue. But as you said, or as Chuck alluded to, all of a sudden there became other components of that, and it, to me, has confused things. I think she would be a good, hardworking member of that board, an unpaid volunteer, and I would appreciate it if she would be appointed.
Mark?
We live in an interesting time where there's a general distrust for our government, local, state, federal, and what I'm about to say is, it's not I don't know Pam Ward personally, so I'm not gonna suggest that she's anything other than a good person. I'm not gonna suggest that she's anything other than a hard worker. I fully believe Mr. Manson when he said that she's a hard worker and she's dedicated, and she did serve the city for a long time. That being said, though, I believe that we as a council, one of our roles is to do everything we can to ensure that the public trusts us, that we're making wise decisions. And if the public has an outcry that they don't trust a particular person, then it's our responsibility to take that into consideration. And it's obvious, good, bad, or indifferent, that there's an issue of trust in the community with this individual person. So be it her or anybody else, I wouldn't, if there was this large of a public outcry that there's distrust for a person, I would not want to add to that distrust by us going against what seems to be the public wish of having that person on board in any capacity.
Any other comments?
Your Honor, I'd make a comment too. I appreciate Mr. Manson's comments, and these kind of decisions aren't at all easy for councils. I mean, we, our job is to represent the public. However, that doesn't mean that in every case everybody gets justice. And there's a lot of times where people are taken in the media and people believe everything they read, and there's always usually that backstory that nobody ever hears about. And not to say a whole lot more on those lines, but that whole situation was a tragedy. And I know Pam, and I like Pam. I think she's a great lady. But I do have to agree with Councilmember Rowe that when we sit up here as not just individual citizens, but both citizens and council people representing the city, that I think there is a perception of integrity, and there should be actual integrity. But that perception of integrity can be damaged very quickly by things that don't always seem to be on the up and up. So, like I said, I think she's a great lady, and we certainly need people on our boards. There's no question about not getting enough people on our boards that are good members. But for the sake that Councilmember Rowe talked to, I would have to agree with him on that, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, are you ready to
No.
May I address that? Would you mind? Is it too late for me to address that? There.
If there's a question from the council, are you raising a question, Mr. Myers?
No, I would like to speak to it. I'd like a final word on it, but if you're allowing Mr. Manson to speak, that's up to you.
Well, I think he spoke once, and I think if there's no other opposition, I would refer back to council and say your chance to have final say on this.
Okay. So then
Thank you,
I would openly, publicly suggest, and I think every councilman here knows my feelings on it, but every time I hear the public outcry requires me to act this way or act that way, I always question, so is the public 10 people, 15 people in the audience? Is it the 10 people that called us? Aren't they just members of the public? So when it comes to be decision time, we make decisions based on the fact that we were elected to make those in a representative form of government. Sure, it'd be great if we could poll everybody by vote or something. We can't do that. But I think we have to be very careful when we say the public spoke, because I got 10 calls that said we shouldn't do it. I think, and I won't say that to you guys again. You all know that's the way I feel about it, that I think the media does that sometimes. Well, the public outcry, there were 5 people maybe, but all of a sudden it becomes the public outcry. End of my sermon. Thank you.
Okay. All right. Ready to take the vote? The motion is to consider Pam Ward as a member of the Waterworks Board. Motion was made and seconded. So take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
No.
Councilmember Myers?
Yeah. Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
No.
Councilmember Stevens?
No.
Councilmember Strebe?
No.
Motion failed.
Okay. Thank you, council. All right. Let's move on to, I need a motion for approval of tonight's agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Item D is that we'll have reports from our officers and boards, commissions, and committees, and I'd like to, at this time, invite City Administrator Andy Morris to make some comments about some of the upcoming activities that are scheduled.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and Council. A couple of items that are listed on the printed agenda, I want to go over briefly. In addition to that, there's 2 additional items that I want to make mention of as well. The 2 meetings that you see referenced, first of all, the meeting on the 22nd, which will be a week from this evening. The other meeting you see listed on the 29th. Again, those are both special meetings. Typically, Council does not take legislative action and vote at those particular meetings, but if need be the case, I'm sure accommodations can be made. The very first item you see on the August 22nd meeting, Regional Planning Commission, Regional Planning Commission 15, the trails discussion, that goes back to, quite frankly, some work that has been done on the staff level, not only regional planning, but also with city staff and Jody Gates, Larry Seals, and I, Gene Ratch, have been involved in those discussions. So there will be discussions that evening regarding their trail and sidewalk enhancements. And I don't believe, again, any decisions will be made that night, but certainly we want to put a couple of options in front of council and consider, and then at a future date, we'll ask council members to share with us their thoughts and opinions about what they want to see manifested. The other item listed is a Blackbird presentation. They will be with us that evening as well. As you know, mention of them as a direct reference to the St. Joe Hospital and the work that needs to be done on that site. In addition to that, some housing opportunities will all be enfolded in that discussion as well. The following week, the 29th, you'll see 2 items that are listed there, and I want to add a comment after the first item listed. Budget review 16-17. As you know, we've come to the end of our fiscal year for the 16-17 budget. That fiscal year ended rather well. We had a fund balance of approximately $493,000. The city continues to have some spending challenges, but overall, I think it's fair to say from a finance perspective, the city did finish very well. In addition to that discussion, though, that night, we're also going to be discussing some of the challenges that are facing the city on the expenditure front. Not only on the expenditure front, but also the discussion about multi-residential property tax rollback and how that will affect the city and some other expenses that are going to likely be hitting the city in the not too distant future. What I wanted that meeting to be was, in addition to it being a meeting to discuss the 16-17 budget, also have a discussion. I know Councilman Dalby has mentioned to me more than a couple of times to have a discussion with council, kind of the view from 30,000 feet about what our expenditures have been and what our revenues have been, and give, quite frankly, staff some direction as to where they want to see some of those dollars spent. We still want to have that. I do, Mayor, would like to schedule that meeting at a future date. But again, just to be clear, as it's listed on the agenda, that budget review 16-17 will take place again at the meeting on the 29th. Bob J. will largely lead that, but I'll participate as well as needed. The staffing discussion, this came up at the previous meeting. The council asked specifically about staffing and the fire department. As you know, I've shared with council, the staffing analysis is finished. I'm doing the summaries on all of the departments. I've just finished the Public Works Department. And at the end of each of those segments, I'm going to list a recommendation. Council wanted to discuss staffing relative to the fire department and budget. So that will be on the STIP again on the 29th. Retail roundtable. I don't know if I want to put Connie on the spot on this as well, Mayor, but if it's all right, I would ask Connie Hemmersley to step to the microphone. As you may or may not recall with council, this is another one that Councilman Dalby brought to my attention, was the merits of having a retail roundtable. As you know, at present, we have an industrial roundtable. Legacy has one. But if it's all right, Mr. Mayor, I would turn it over to you and ask Connie to say a few words about that.
Good evening, Connie. You have the floor.
Thank you. Andy and I and the mayor as well over the last few months have discussed the possibilities. I know some of the council members had thought it would be a great idea to have a retail roundtable, and I concur. I think this is very important for our business community, especially our small businesses that are continuing to grow and other businesses that are continuing to expand. And then, of course, the ones that are struggling, and so we can be able to do some outreach and some first aid for those as well. So what we would propose is sitting down with the council and then bringing together we'll start with chamber members, bringing them to the table, finding out what their needs are, what their outlooks are, what their struggles are, and having those conversations. Again, the Buxton Group presented a wonderful option to help our small businesses with some social media outreach and advertising. I'm very excited about getting that program started. We're going to start with taking 5 members from each of the 5 districts, 25 per month, and allow them to be a part of this program. So I feel, and Andy and I, when we spoke earlier, that we would have an initial meeting with our business community, maybe at Bridgeview or a large enough venue, that we could explain what the roundtable would look like, what we're looking for, what we need input from them, possibly doing a survey, and then also doing a presentation on the Buxton project and explaining that to them in a large group. And then as we break it down, move them into smaller groups, and have different ones working on different strategic plans and ideas to grow our small business community. So basically, in a nutshell, that's where we're at right now. If you have any questions, if you have any comments, if you have any ideas, I would greatly appreciate us working together and making this happen.
Mr. Mayor, if I may add one item on this, and Connie, I appreciate the background work you've done. You've performed on this. This does not require council authorization. I think when Councilman Dalby brought this up, I think it's a very good idea. In addition to that, I did speak with Kelly Jenners at the Legacy Foundation, and they are very much in favor of this as well. So all items being equal, unless there are any objections from you or the representatives of the City Council, we will proceed on this.
Great. I think it's a great idea.
Great. I appreciate it.
Can I say one thing, Your Honor?
Sure.
Connie, thanks. And I thank the City Administrator Morris there for forwarding the idea. It's always one thing for any of us up here to mention anything and then having it carried forward and see come to fruition is a nice thing. One thing I wanted to ask you on, as a council person, you try to get out and visit as many of our small businesses as you can, especially when there's an issue that arises. One of the questions I had, and one of the reasons I brought this to the attention was there's always seems to be a disconnect, because we are disconnected somewhat, even though we're in the same area, on issues that happen in our retail space downtown and all over the city.
Absolutely.
And so will this have that element in there of discussion where they can either written form or present themselves, with the issues they're having? Would this be an appropriate place and need to?
This is exactly the kind of things that we're looking for. Are what are your struggles? What are your strengths? What can we do as a community? And that would include, of course, the government. What can we do to maybe alleviate some roadblocks that they may have because of, a rule that, 1940 we thought was a great idea, but somehow it's keeping them from having other progress going on. So, or just forward thinking on some things maybe we've never thought of before that they can bring to the table and that we can discuss and move forward.
Thank you both.
I would add one comment because I've sat in on some of the development meetings and I hear this frequently out on the street. It seems like there is some misunderstanding about our zoning and our inspection process and those types of things. So I would hope, Councilman Dalby, that we could have some of those discussions with the businesses because depending on the size of the city, there are some state requirements that we have to meet that maybe some of the other cities don't have to meet.
True.
And so clarification and more openness in government, I think, is our goal, and this certainly could accomplish that. So hats off to you.
Well, and I appreciate the support very, very much. So thank you, and I'm looking forward to moving forward.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One other comment, and I'd like to invite Larry Seals to the microphone. And I've had a ton of questions about the start date for the roundabout over at Richmond and Ferry. And through no fault of the city, that has been delayed, and we don't have an exact start date, Larry. But if you could give the council and the public
Mr. Mayor, I don't interrupt this, but I did have one other item though to mention, and that is the Solid Waste Commission meeting for tomorrow night has been canceled.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Jody. Appreciate that. So Larry, would you just give us a 2-minute kind of summary?
Sure, Mayor. Thanks for this opportunity. One of the things that we've been working with is the DOT on final approval. I don't think I'll go clear into the details, but there was some discussions on how the contracts need to be structured. We have not received those back from council. At this point, we've really missed our opportunity to use the summer break to reduce the impact, at least on the school traffic. We do have a contractor setting and biting the bit and wanting to get started. I think at this time, we're going to turn him loose on his other job. I'm not sure at this point if it's another week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to get those contracts back from the district, because they'll have to go up to Ames to the contracts office and get approved and then come back, I believe. So we're going to start him. It probably looks, depending on when he gets that street done, it could easily be the first week or second week in October before he starts. And that'll work better, at least with one of the local businesses from his construction.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Larry. I appreciate that clarification.
And I want to point out that normally, we'll do somewhere close to the project, we'll have some sort of input meeting where we typically invite the directly adjacent property owners. That doesn't happen until we have a schedule. We can't really have a schedule until we have a pre-con. We can't have that until we really get the contracts in place. So we've been kind of playing a wait and see game. So that's where we're at.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Appreciate that. Okay. Let's move on to item E. If there's any person in the audience that wants to address an item on the agenda, now's your chance to do that. Do you have any, Amanda?
Not received any.
Okay, then let's move on to anybody in the audience. Okay, let's move on to F then.
Approve the contract with To The Top for sustainability in the amount of $4,000. Recommendation, approve the contract and authorize the mayor to sign.
And Andy, Move the we're gonna- recommendation. I'm sorry, Mayor. Go ahead. Move the recommendation as presented. Thank you, Bob. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Okay, now I'll turn it over to Andy for some comments.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. The sustainability effort and bringing it To The Top, which is the organization that has worked a great deal with the community on the, let's just say, Chamber and OEDC and Main Street reorganization. I reached out to Cassandra Halls with To The Top a couple of months ago about helping us put together a contract that will lend itself to continuing our sustainability efforts. I'll just point out a couple of quick items on this. And if you have any questions, certainly we'll be happy to take those. But the city is already undertaking a number of sustainability projects, whether it relates to green roofs, pervious pavement, the work that has been completed anyway to reduce stormwater runoff and stormwater remediation. All what Cassandra will do in her contract work essentially is two items. One will be to develop an inventory of current practices, and then quite frankly, the next will be to set benchmarks that are aspirational for the city to attain. But we're already doing this at a very good level. If council does approve the contract tonight, one of the clauses in the contract you may see is Cassandra would attend the sustainability conference in Dubuque. That unfortunately conflicts with the time that the Iowa League of Cities meeting takes place. So I would ask that she be permitted to attend that conference on our behalf. If you or council members have any questions on this, I'll be happy to take them.
Any questions for Andy?
Your Honor, Administrator Morris, would we get like an overview when she compiles results, and you'll pass those on to us, maybe in print form or something like that?
Very good question, Councilman. What will happen again is our very first step will be to conduct an inventory of the practices we're already taking. And many of those, as I said, even quite frankly, the roundabouts would be one, because you're looking at less fuel usage. That would be one that would lend itself to it. The work that we're doing will probably take place after the first of the year with Alliant Energy. Sustainability, I believe that will lend itself to it, but she will gather that inventory. That's going to be easy enough. The more difficult part is going to be setting the benchmarks and making sure that we work towards attaining those. But the easy part will be the inventory. The other item to bear in mind with a number of the sustainability projects, such as the green roofs or the pervious pavement, typically, and this would be Mr. Seal's world, he can speak to this far better than I can, but that would be usually when we undertake projects that involve that, there's usually funding that's involved from another party. It's very expensive for the city to do that. I'm not suggesting at all we take money from road use fund or any other funds then and create those, the pervious pavement, although it's aspirational. But in short, we will develop that inventory, and then hopefully we'll have benchmarks, kind of a strategic planning mode for us to work towards.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, the motion is to approve the contract and authorize me to sign it on behalf of the city. Ready to vote? Take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Beach Atumwa rental fees. Recommendation, approve the new rental fees for the Beach Atumwa.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Good evening, Gene. You have the floor.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Mayor. The current fees for group rentals for the Beach Atumwa are attached. These fees are too high. These fees have been in place since the beach opened in 1992. Many groups that call to inquire about renting the beach are discouraged by the group rental fees. There is also no reason to include staffing costs in the rental fees since the beach uses a standard 9 lifeguard rotation. Proposed revised fees are listed below. Package number 1, indoor pools only, $75 per hour. Package number 2, eliminate. Package number 3, outdoor pools only, $300 per hour. And package number 4, the entire facility, $400 per hour. These fees were approved by the Atumwa Parks Advisory Board at their meeting on August 8th, 2017. And the new fees and the new beach flyer that was made by the CVB will be mailed to prospective groups and organizations that may want to have group rentals at the Beach Atumwa.
Any questions for Gene?
Your Honor, I got a quick comment.
Sure.
Gene, looking back on the old list here compared to the new prices, I think this is the kind of stuff I've kind of been looking for, ways to maximize use by the people here who have paid for that more than once, by the way, and giving them better value. But along that, I wasn't at the Parks Board meeting, but has there ever been any thought by the Parks Board or by you or anybody else that you've heard of, or other water parks in the area, do they offer, say for the month of August, if you really want to, get some attendance there, offer special deals, special packages, work that into the marketing aspect with these kind of things? Because, they're still high. I mean, they're still high. They're expensive. That's not cheap to rent the entire facility or even half of it. But, to push that, and get it affordable and have more people use it, because I don't think very many people use it now except for bigger parties. Is that correct?
Well, it's true that our daily admission starts to drop off in August. People go on vacations and school starts and sports starts and things like that. So maybe we need to have a brainstorming session at a park board meeting to come up with more ways in addition to this to bring more people into the Beach Atumwa during late in the season. You're right.
This is a good move. Thank you. Thanks for bringing it up.
Any other comments or questions? Mark?
Gene, do you think that if you guys had to ballpark this, how much increased traffic do you think this will bring to the beach by lowering these prices?
Well, I think it should at least double our group rentals, and most of them happen during the month of August. We've lost a few over the years. For example, the SATF back to school party that Connie used to be involved with, we've lost that over the past couple of years because they lost their funding. So my idea is to lower these fees and then try to get a lot more groups into the beach. And I'm hoping this will double our group rentals and maybe even triple it.
So as a follow-up question, I'm looking at the old packages here, and you're saying you use a standard 9-guard rotation, but your package 3 and your package 4 actually has more. Are you going to have to bring in additional staff for the package 3 and the package 4? Because the current one says for package 3 is 11 guards and package 4 is 14 guards.
Yeah, they actually used that many lifeguards when the beach opened during the 1990s and the 2000s. And when I started, I realized that many lifeguards were not necessary, and we had lifeguards standing around not doing very much. So one of the ways I cut the costs at the beach is I reduced the lifeguards rotation down to the minimum, which is usually 8 or 9 guards. If we have a really big event, sometimes we'll go to 10 lifeguards, but we never use more than 10 because we just don't need more than 10. We only have 8 actual spots for the guards. We create another one if it's a big event, so we have 9, and then we have 1 guard on break.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the secondary anaerobic digester interior piping project. I received no objections on this item.
Good evening, Cam. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Council.
Well, I'm bringing this project back to council. Unfortunately, I put the cart before the horse, and I did not have the public hearing before we sent plans out. So this is being brought back to council. Bids will be received and opened by the city of Ottumwa on August 30th at 2 p.m. The bid report and bid award recommendation will be presented at the city council meeting on September 5, 2017.
This is a public hearing, so if there's anyone in the audience that wants to address this item, this is an opportunity to do that. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Resolution number 181, 2017, approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the secondary anaerobic digester interior piping project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 181, 2017.
Move the recommendations presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Cam? Hearing none, take a roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Grandview Pump Station Improvements Project. I've received no objections on this item.
Go ahead, Cam.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This project will include replacing a leaking discharge pipe and replacing isolation valves and leaking check valves. The station was built in 1952 with some upgrades in 1985. The station must remain in operation during this work, so bypass pumping will be required. Bids will be received and opened by the city of Ottumwa on September 12, 2017 at 2 p.m. The bid report and bid award recommendation will be presented to the city council meeting on September 19, 2017.
This is again a public hearing, so if there's anyone that wants to address this item. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. We'll take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Resolution number 182, 2017, approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Grandview Pump Station Improvements Project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 182, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Skip, or excuse me, for Cam?
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
just one question on this, Cam. I believe if I'm reading the staff summary correctly, is it true that this is going to require a budget amendment?
It will. We originally had this budgeted as a carryover item, and that time has passed. So we will need to do this. And the reason we're not considering it an emergency, but we are 30 to 40 feet from the creek. And if the pipe starts leaking outside, it'll just run directly into the creek.
Right.
We've had leaking inside the building, actually where it's even sprayed inside the building. That part is actually sealed off right now, but it is still leaking. So we want to get this corrected before we have any problems with the creek and sewage running down
I know,
into
Mr.
that.
Mayor, my only question on that was whether or not if that money has not been carried forward, I would assume then you're taking it out of fund balance, or is it in fact an item that's in the budget?
It will be taken out of the sewer fund. I've already spoken with Bob J. We do have other projects that we will look at, either doing some of those ourselves or just moving things back that we have in the current budget year.
That's all I had. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Thank you, Cam. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this resolution. Ready to vote? Take roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Water Pollution Control Facility Waste Gas Burner Replacement and Relocation Project. I've received no objections on this item.
Okay. Go ahead, Cam.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. This project will include the relocation and installation of an already purchased waste gas burner. Our current waste gas burner is no longer functional, having been deteriorated by hydrogen sulfide in the gas. The location must be moved to meet the National Electric Code. The burner must be located further from the lab building and electrical wires and must be elevated higher than the current waste gas burner. Bids will be received and opened by the City of Ottumwa on September 12, 2017 at 2 p.m. The bid report and bid award recommendation will be presented at the City Council meeting on September 19.
This too is a public hearing, so if there's anybody that wants to address this item. Seeing none, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So move.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Resolution number 183, 2017, approving the plans, specifications, form of contract, and estimated cost for the Water Pollution Control Facility Waste Gas Burner Replacement and Relocation Project. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 183, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Cam?
Yes.
Bob?
Cam, so the National Electric Code
Yes.
had moving these three components or whatever would bring it up to that national code.
That'll put us in compliance, correct?
Yeah, but in fact, those components are a matter of safety and improvement, right? So it's not just to meet the code. They're really necessary?
Yes, they are.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments?
I got a quick question
Go
for
ahead.
Cam. Cam, just, I don't mean to piggyback on what Administrator Morris said, but this also looks like it requires a budget amendment. But I'm just making sure, I assume that this is also going to be, we're going to be juggling some projects within the current budget.
This one was
to make it
actually
work.
budgeted. This was a carryover item. So that's the only reason it needs a budget amendment. It's carried over from the previous fiscal year.
Okay, so it already been budgeted for. then.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, good question. Any other comments? Hearing none, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cam.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the proposed ordinance number 3124, 2017, amending the Code of Ordinances by changing the zoning classification on property located at 1321 Asbury Avenue from R1 Single Family Residential Low Density to R5 Multifamily Residential High Density. I've received no objections on this item.
Okay, good evening, Kevin. You have the floor.
Thank you, Your Honor. We're coming back with this ordinance for a 63-unit facility at 1321 Asbury Avenue. I would remind council of the conditions upon the ordinance, which would be for a 5-year term to see substantive action happen on the project, and also that the number of units not exceed 63. Of course, I would entertain any questions. I think we're all familiar with the project, but I would entertain any questions that members have.
Well, this is a public hearing first, so is there anybody in the audience that wants to address this item? Please come up and state your name and we'll.
Hi, my name's Denise Dennis, and I live close to where this is to be built. Can you promise me it will not be a low-rent housing in my backyard? Before you guys build it, we don't want low-rent housing in our backyard. We don't want an apartment complex in our backyard. Our streets are houses, not apartments. They're single-dwelling houses. And we would all like to keep it that way. We don't want apartments. So can you guys promise me that if you do build the apartments, it's not low rent housing?
Well, I think we'll call on our city administrator to make some comments about this, and certainly, Kevin, you can add some comments too if you need to.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think it would be appropriate for Kevin to step forward and answer some of those questions. I don't think the city can say definitively then, based on the development, that all of these are going to be low to moderate income units. You've got some market rate housing in there. In addition to that, you have some LMI units. Now, Mr. Mayor, certainly it's up to council. I believe Mr. Danner is with us this evening. It may be a wise decision to ask him to come to the fore at some point and quite frankly explain the project a little bit better of what it is and what it may not be. But I think it may be wise again, Mayor, your call, but I think it'd be wise to ask Mr. Flanagan to return to the microphone.
Kevin, do you want to speak anything
You could speak.
Thank you. The project is 63 units total. It's a low to moderate income workforce housing project. No more than 10% of the units, I believe, can be market rate. There will be some market rate units within it. This is not low income public housing project at all. This is a privately owned housing development. We are not, there's no way for us to estimate the percentage of people who will have assistance. It is rent controlled. We don't know how many people will be on Section 8, for instance, it will be living in. It's hard to say. But this is going to be a quality workforce housing project. Mr. Danaher has an impeccable reputation for building quality developments, and has participated in tax credits program before for other projects, has done projects of a purely market rate style as well. So impeccable reputation in not only in our region, but in other areas of the country. He has also developed with partners. So we have a high level of confidence that this project is going to be a great amenity to our community to help us address what is a serious shortage, we believe, in workforce housing. But I mean, I hope that helps a little to clarify, but.
It made me understand. Still don't agree.
Mr. Mayor, I would ask at some point Mr. Danaher
You
to step
just
forward.
used a different word on low rent housing. It's still low rent housing is low rent housing. Put it in your backyard, not mine. I am in a neighborhood that is single dwelling homes, and that's the way we all want to keep it. And we don't want low rent housing apartments in our neighborhood. That's where we stand. You know, if you guys want it in your neighborhood, be my guest, but not in ours.
Okay, I think we've got the flavor of your comments and your opposition to it. Jim, is there anything you want to add to this?
Yes, thank you. My name is Jim Danaher. Thank you for your comments about poorly developed housing. We're as concerned about poorly developed housing as anyone. And our budget is significant. It's over $200,000 per unit. So the quality of the product is very good. A friend of mine said, your father's subsidized housing is not today's subsidized housing, and that's exactly the case. The rules today for developing affordable housing are very rigorous, monitored by many different organizations, and meet a very high standard. The second issue I think you're concerned about is the quality of the tenants. In order to rent at the facility, and of course an application is taken. The individual's checked for credit, that they can pay properly, that they haven't had events at other complexes that they were terminated, or they had problems at other complexes. So there's a rigorous process for getting a tenant in the building. That prevents problems with tenants that have too many cars, don't pay the rent on time, destroy the property. So we're concerned about all those elements as an owner, that they pay the rent on time, it's a good quality tenant, that they don't destroy the property, it's our property, we're concerned about that, and all the things that you'd normally be concerned about having someone in your house. So I don't know how else to address your concerns that it's going to be a terrible project, but absolutely it's a very high quality building. It's a very rigorous selection process for tenants. And in addition, though, we have to abide by all the rules that govern fair housing. And if a tenant is qualified, we rent to them. And so that's,
Okay.
thank you.
Any questions for Jim? Thank you. This is still part of a public hearing, so is there anyone else in the audience that wants to address? Step up.
Yes, my name's Jason Weller, and I know the location they're wanting to put this on. We already have a lot of problems in that area. And if they're putting a big apartment complex right there on the corner where they want to put it, the traffic through that area is going to be twice as bad. Higher possibilities for the accidents, all that stuff. And I believe that the safety of the neighborhood and all that, and with the little kids, I watch on the side streets, kids almost getting hit because of careless people. And putting that many more people in that one spot is going to increase, I believe, it's going to keep the safety of the people down instead of worrying about, okay, let's make this a big complex instead of just a single house. But I mean, the safety between 63 people compared to the safety of everybody else. I mean, those 63 people in that one area, there could be somebody walking down the street, and we get enough careless people driving down those streets right now the way it is. We don't need 63 more vehicles. I mean, right there in that one area, in that one spot, because if people's not paying attention, which a lot of people in this town don't, but I mean, you put that big of a complex right there, that's going to cause more of a hassle with traffic, and it's going to raise everything right there in that area. So, I mean, I don't believe it's a good location for it if they could find a different area. I mean, that there should stay a single place. That way it doesn't have more problems.
Okay,
That's what
thank you for your
I think
comments.
needs to happen.
Okay, we're still at the public hearing point. Yes, Connie?
We've had several conversations throughout the community on the lack of housing, and it is an initiative with Partners in Progress organizations. We need homes so people can get out of some of these slumlord houses and into homes that these people are going to work every day. They're working at our convenience stores. They're working as aides in our hospitals. They're working, for minimum wage and above, but they're working. And they have families, they have dreams. They should have the right to live in a home that they can be proud of and build a community. And yes, it's not always, I've been in different areas where we've got single houses and apartment complexes, and they're right together and they work together well as a community. They do a lot of fun neighborhood things together. It can bring a lot of richness to the area if you allow it to. But to have people to be proud of their homes, to be able to go to a place that is safe, that is clean, that is efficient, and from everything that I have seen that Kevin has shared with me, these are going to be lovely complex, homes. But that's the point. They are someone's home that they're going to be able to go to, raise their families in, take a shower with clean water, and be proud of where they live. And with these complexes, these 63 units, they'll be very proud to be able to live in these homes. So please take that as it is. But talking with people in the community, they're looking forward to being able to move out of some of the housings that they're forced to live in, or move out of Ottumwa because of the lack of housing. And we really have to address that. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'd entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second. Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3124, amending the Code of Ordinances by changing the zoning classification on property located at 1321 Asbury Avenue from R1 Single Family Residential Low Density to R5 Multifamily Residential High Density. Recommendation A, pass the first consideration of ordinance number 3124, 2017.
Is there a motion? Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Any questions for Kevin?
Not so much a question, just a comment. I voted against this project the first time, and I just wanted to say, just from my personal perspective, I've appreciated the breadth of information that we've received subsequent to that vote. A lot of things that were very muddy during that first presentation, for myself at least, got cleared up in definitions and what the actual scope of the project was. And certainly Mr. Danaher coming and speaking to council, not once, but again tonight, has cleared a lot of things up for me. So I just wanted to say I appreciate everybody's efforts in giving good, solid information to the council.
I think one important aspect of it is that we're just getting into kind of addressing our issues with housing. So it's a learning process for all of us, and it's a good thing. We're learning as a community, and we're moving forward.
Okay.
Your Honor, I got a couple questions.
Sure.
Just some final questions. I know we're talking about, excuse me, just a zoning issue tonight, but it prepares that property to be built on by Mr. Danaher here. So another question, and thank you again. I'll echo what Councilmember Rose said about the information. Thanks a bunch for you and Jody supplying that on overload. It was great. That's what we like. What it raised, though, is another question tonight. Not a question where I'm at on position on this issue, but where we get, I also voted like Councilmember Rowe not to do this project last time, or this rezoning, because I wasn't clear on some of the different definitions of what low rent housing is. And you supplied us with about 6 different definitions of low rent housing, the bottom being Section 8, which brings with it kind of a connotation and a perception of being terrible housing with terrible tenants that create crime. And in some cases, I'm sure that is the case. I don't think you can completely get away with that. My question is, I believe, and I don't have the paperwork with me here, there are a certain amount of Section 8 certificates that are given or whatever per county. Is that true?
There is not a never-ending flow of Section 8 credit vouchers, no.
Well, we got a piece of information.
There's project vouchers though, and there's other type vouchers now. So
were we talking about project vouchers with that list that you gave us?
I'm not sure which list. I didn't.
Well, Wapello County had, and Andy, you kind of had this in your assessment too. Are those vouchers for projects?
Mr. Mayor, if I speak to that just a minute, I would like for Ms. Gates to speak to this as well. One of the quick surveys we did, though, were tax credit units. And it was a quick survey I did on the usual sister cities that encompass what, quite frankly, Ottumwa belongs to. Clinton, Fort Dodge, Burlington, and Clinton. Or Burlington, and another one would certainly be, I think Cedar Falls is included in that. One of the items that I took away from that quick survey was you look at the number of tax credit units. And the number of tax credit units, the average of those, I believe it were 6 communities that I took information from. It was 201.6. That was the average. The number for Ottumwa stood at 67. One of the reasons that number, I would argue, I think staff would agree as well, that number is so low. We've not seen a plethora of, let's just say, tax credit housing opportunities become available in town. In addition to that, I believe the point was made as well from an employment perspective. Anyone knows the vacancies, Councilman Rose spoken about this, certainly at Tenco, it occurs at JBS and a variety of other entities that are in town. One of the positions of staff is to increase that corpus and bring more people to town, was to help create opportunities then for those to find a place to stay. Because if you are a low to moderate income family, a family of 4 with 2 children, that income is a little over $45,600. They're not going to move into a home on Birchwood. That's simply not going to happen. I initially had questions about this as well. From a staff perspective, I think it's something certainly worth pursuing, and Mr. Danaher has shared with us the quality units that he has developed. The questions of code enforcement will continue to be something we struggle with. That will take place here as it does in all other neighborhoods. But probably a long answer to your question, but I did, Mr. Mayor, at least want to give some perspective of the number of tax credit units. This is not something that the city is very high in. We rank probably the lowest of those. I'll turn it back over to you, and I know Ms. Gates had some comments to make as well.
Jody, is there anything you want to add to this?
Well, I'm not exactly sure of all of the information that you're referencing, but I know that we use the number 237 Section 8 vouchers. Those are just general vouchers. And then of those, one of our tax credit projects is going to be assigned 15 project-based vouchers, which means that 15 of those vouchers can only be used at that project.
That's kind of what I was getting at there. There's a number.
Right.
There is a number, so we know what could potentially be immediately, that type of housing. And then there's 5 other definitions.
There's
and
200. Yeah.
And I've seen the rental rates, and they're not cheap on some of these.
No.
I think that people's concern is a lot of times when things they don't go as anticipated, we have to fill them with something. And I think that was my concern too, and whether we were meeting the needs of the community. But Connie spoke to it. I've seen the needs we have, and we have a drastic need for that type of housing here.
We do.
This isn't just one of those things that comes along. We say, oh, look, that's nice. Let's approve that. There is a need. And I think our job as a council, as popular or non-popular as may be, we have to fit the needs of the community. So I just want to clear that up, that there is a number.
There is a
limit.
There's a limited number.
There's
That's
a limited
correct.
number. Okay.
237 is the limited number that I'm aware of
In our
right
county.
now available for the city of Ottumwa.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other clarification? All right, there's a motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a comment.
Sure.
I'd like to thank the citizens for coming up here and expressing their concerns, Denise and Mr. Weller. Your concerns are our concerns. There's a reason why this didn't receive immediate approval. There's a reason why there were no votes. This is something that we needed to receive a lot more information about, and Mr. Danaher came and spoke with us, and we've received a lot more information on it. So believe us, we will be keeping our eye on this if it's approved, and the same concerns that you raised are ones that we had initially and will continue to have as we go forward.
Okay. Thank you, Victor.
Mayor, I would make a point. Kevin, I would ask, and I think I've made this point before, and I think all of this discussion has really been great, and I certainly agree with the 2 members of the public that spoke. But on the other hand, from an economic point of view, Kevin, and property tax and what that does, I think the 2.5 acres as they set right now, the revenue from that is like $200. And once the credits and everything are taken care of, that will potentially be around 700,000. Is that correct?
Currently, I think it may be 400 and something as a yearly collection. I was looking at both our Washington project and this one, so I kind of get those numbers mixed up. But they're about the same Greenfield kind of situation, one a Gray and one a Greenfield. But on an investment level of around 12 million for this project, we could look at this property assessment to come out somewhere between the 3 and 4 million mark, likely, from what I understand from Bob in his discussions with the tax assessor.
And to me, the more properties that we get paying property tax at levels, then eventually the better our chance of ever lowering.
Yes, important to note, these aren't nonprofit efforts. They are going to be on your tax digest, and they're going to be generating revenue, indeed.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, we have a motion made and seconded to pass the first consideration of ordinance 3124 this year. Are you ready to vote? Take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Recommendation B, waive the second and third considerations, pass and adopt ordinance number 3124, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have a question, Your Honor, and
Yes.
Kevin, you may be able to answer this. On this waiving the second, third considerations, this is a zoning issue, and it is one that I don't like to rush through on readings. However, is there any seeing what happened last time and having to come back and go through this process, are there timing requirements here and limits? Is that why that's on here? Because zoning, I always like to get it 3 readings. It's a personal preference, but do we have a reason why we're rushing this and just approving it in one pass or 2?
Yes, good question. On both projects tonight, there was a request for waiving readings because of time situation in both cases. In this case, the tax credits applications are due in December.
Okay.
And certain processes do need to be done before we generally have those apps coming in. So yeah, we read it 3 times and I thought, well, if we could get a head start on some of those processes.
I just want to know there was a reason. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions? Take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the proposed ordinance number 3125, 2017, amending the Code of Ordinances by changing the zoning classification on property located at 325 South Union from I-1 Limited Industrial District to I-2 General Industrial District. I received no objections on this item.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Thank you, Your Honor. In this case, on this rezoning, basically, we felt like that the kinds of activities that would be undertaken in this facility, which is an existing structure that will be remodeled to some extent, some work going to be going on in here to fit this activity, an agri-plastics type business, that some of the processes to be taking place would exceed the light industrial classification just by a hair. And so we felt like it would be more appropriate for it to be an I-2 instead of an I-1 industrial zoning district.
This is a public hearing, so if there's anybody that wants to address this item, seeing none, I entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3125, 2017, amending the Code of Ordinances by changing the zoning classification on property located at 325 South Union from I-1 Limited Industrial District to I-2 General Industrial District. Recommendation A, pass the first consideration of ordinance number 3125, 2017.
Is there a motion?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions?
I just have one. How will this change the tax base at that property?
It's well, again, kind of tough to say in a way because of the extent of the development that's going to take place within the building can vary. People start off with one idea about what they're going to do, and of course, they end up doing a lot more improvements by the time they get to the end of it. But it will make I would say, a substantial difference in the value of compared to what it is now. Of course, in the condition that it's in. When you look at especially the equipment that will be brought in there as well, that would add to the value, it would make I would say a substantial value difference in the property itself. The developer, the business owner also is not sure, that he will be there for a very long period of time, that he feels like that there's a good chance, and we do too, that his activities could proceed at a pretty good clip and that he may need to expand soon. So, you'll have another improved building out there. On the tax roll for another business to be able to come in there to what would be a substantially improved building. This is a real good opportunity for us.
So just as a follow-up, the business, they're not shaken by this at all?
No, we had one challenge in the very beginning on a planning level. A lot of times when you're doing planning procedures, you get tied up in building inspections processes as well, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. And we were looking at sprinkler system and firewalling. How can we develop this in the best and safest manner in order to do the activity we need to do on it in the most cost efficient way? So we felt like there could be challenges in the beginning, but some changes with the developer, business owner, and the things he wanted to do the way he wanted to do them. We got around that, and it was the first building we talked about, and he ended up staying with it all the way through.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Kevin, I got a question, Your Honor, if I may.
Sure.
The movement here is from I-1 to I-2, not a big issue really, because it's already in the industrial zone. If you said something about him maybe not being there, but conditionally, is there anything it may not be necessary, but is there a way to do that conditionally, or is this the better move to totally change it to a different classification?
Well,
is this not conditional use permit material here? Is that basically what we're saying?
I didn't recommend it as conditional use to the board, the planning commission, and I didn't think it fell into that category really. It is in our major industrial area. It's not a spot zone in that sense because you do have this light industrial area there that's just north of the heavier industry. And light industry, a lot of the times you're going to look at warehousing, storage, these kinds of concepts. So there's a little bit more activity here on that, like you have blow molding and some heat involved.
That's good.
But there's a lot more of those types of activities that are taking place in that general area.
Right.
And it's hard to say that it won't, even though it'll be an I-2, it's hard to say that it won't fold back in when this gentleman is finished with it into more light application and use. It may indeed do that.
Okay.
But it will be easier to sell it and market it as an I-2 for him, as it usually is in zoning districts. When you're a little bit more intensive district, there's a little bit more variance in use.
Right. Thank you.
Okay, ready to vote? Take the roll, please.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Recommendation B, waive the second and third considerations, pass and adopt ordinance number 3125, 2017.
Move the recommendation.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. Any questions for Kevin? Okay, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Resolution number 175, 2017, fixing an amount for abating a nuisance against certain properties in the city of Ottumwa, Iowa. Recommendation, pass and adopt resolution number 175, 2017.
The recommendation is presented.
Second?
Second.
Thank you, Mark. Good evening, Jody. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. The nuisances on this resolution were abated by the city, and the costs associated with the abatement were billed to the property owners, and these remain unpaid. There are 7 properties on the resolution, and abatement costs total $5,260.49.
Okay, are there any questions for Jody? Okay. All right, take the roll.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jody. Thank you for getting that cleared up. Item K, we always give the audience a chance if there's any issue that's not on the agenda that you want to talk about, that's just city business. This is your chance to step to the mic and inform the council. Okay, seeing none. I'll make a couple of comments real quick. I want to share with the council a letter I received just yesterday. Mr. and Mrs. Kuzer from Cedar Rapids, who recognized our public safety and medical examiner. Apparently, their son died this summer here in Ottumwa, and they came here and were greeted by Mark Hagest and officers Leffler and Voss, and they were really impressed with the way they were handled, and they wanted to be sure that I shared this with not only the police department, but with the city as a whole. I mean, for a family to come from out of town and have a loss of a family member, and for them to still feel that they were well received and taken care of in a very difficult time, I think is outstanding. So again, I want to just pass that on, Chief, and I trust that you'll pass that on to your 2 officers there. Secondly, I want to remind everybody of the Fly Iowa activity, which will be August 26th and 27th at the industrial airport. And we have a great lineup of stunt pilots and some military aircraft. And in conjunction with that, I do want to report to the council, after working with the county, we were able to get our liquor license for our beverage garden at the airport. That was passed by the Board of Supervisors this morning. So appreciate their cooperation. Amanda had to walk me through that since it is city property located in the county. Lastly, we did have Councilman Rowe and I had the opportunity to sit in on a meeting today. And I just want you, the council and the public to know that we are continuing to work on some economic development. We're not at liberty to make any comments at this point, but there are some behind the scenes things going on. They look very good and very promising, and we hope that at least one of them will come to fruition, if not both of them. So we'll keep you posted as we go through those things. Now, are there any other comments from council? Are there any other questions or discussions? Okay, then I remind you that we'll have a special meeting on the 22nd. I have asked Councilman Myers to fill in as Mayor Pro Tem. I will be flying back from out of state, and if connections work, I'll get here at 5:30. If they don't work, I'll be late. So I just want the public to know that ahead of time. All right, I'd entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
Councilmember Dalby?
Yes.
Councilmember Myers?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Councilmember Stevens?
Yes.
Councilmember Strebe?
Yes.
I have 6:44.